Hi guys, and welcome back to part 3. So, in this video, we're going down the track of finding where this issue is. Because after that last time, I've been talking to a couple of people, and one of them got online with me, and we went through testing some more bits. And we found that there might be more issues than the video processor. So I pulled out the ROMs to check the ROMs and found I had errors there. Character ROM, I had problems there. This you'll all see in the video coming up. And we also found problems with something else. It's going to be an interesting one. Jump on board, grab yourself a drink, something to snack on, and a comfy seat, and let's have a look. Hi guys, and welcome back to part 3. So, the saga of the Bondwell-16 continues. I contacted a few people online to see if anybody could help me find out what could be the issue with this machine, because I was picking it was around the video processor or the character ROM or the ROM itself, but I wasn't 100% sure, and I got a hold of a chap who helped me through, and we spent a couple of nights talking backwards and forwards and testing things out, because I've not come across this issue before. We decided that it was the video processor. As I said in my last video, I put a socket in for that, and I'm waiting for those to come back in. I popped out the ROM and I put it in my EEPROM programmer, and it's just a standard 2732 as is labelled on it. Put it in, set it up for that, did a read on it. I got errors on all the pins from A0 to A7. They all had errors on reading the pins. And I thought, oh no, don't tell me. Because there is not a copy of this ROM on the net that I can find. And even on the Vintage Computer Forum International site, there is not one, and there's people looking for a copy of the ROM. So I thought, and I was talking to this chap about it as well, and he says, oh, well, that's a bit weird, so have you got any other ROMs to test? And at that time I wasn't thinking, and I thought, no, I don't have any. I could get some in of that size. And then he says, no, you just need a blank ROM. And I thought, oh yeah, I've got some 256s, some 27C256s. That I could try. And he said, yeah, any 27 series would be fine. So I popped one of those in, and it checked fine. So we knew the software and the programmer were fine. So I thought, that's not right then. And he says, well, it could be that chip is faulty. So I thought, oh well. What I did is then, I thought, well, I'll pop the character ROM out and see what the story is with this. So I popped the character ROM out, and I put that in the programmer as well. Same problem. Address line 0 to 7. Faulty. And now, this doesn't have it written on it. This has Bondwell 12-14 CR with a character ROM for the machine. But it is a 2732. But it is a single flash once. The difference being is that these are all 85 chips. This is an 86, so this must have been a slightly later variant when they did it. And I thought, oh no, so what am I going to do now if I can't get good images off it? I left it for a day, and I went out and I pulled out the board off of the Bondwell-14. And this is the main board of the Bondwell-14. Now they don't have the hard drive in them. They have dual floppies. So that's why it's got the floppy drive connector here. And if you looked at this board here, where this ribbon cable is, there's two ribbons that go through it. So that's where this connector would have gone. So you could, in all honesty, put in a pair of these and the board would connect together with a short ribbon cable in it. And I'm pretty sure that's what they did with the not the Bondwells, but with the K-Pros. I'm pretty sure they had like a very short cable like that in them, and that went to their little daughter board that ran the floppy drives. This is a similar board, a different layout because it is an earlier board, and this one I actually had to mark them. These were both glass topped when I got them, and the labels were coming off them. So I put some new labels over the top. I couldn't remember which was which until I saw this board, and it's IC1 is the ROM chip, and the other IC is the character ROM. Now, from what I've seen in the manual, the 14 and the 16 had the same character ROMs. So I thought, right, I don't want to put this into the 16, turn it on and kill it. So I thought, well, I'll pop it out and I'll stick it in the EEPROM programmer. So I put it in the EEPROM programmer, told it to read, bingo, straight away, read up, no problems. I thought, well, that's got to be something faulty with those ROMs then. There are copies of the ROM for the 14, not the character ROM, but the ROM. So I popped the ROM in, did a read, and that one read fine as a 2732. So I thought, oh, cool. So I've got both of those. So the next day I was talking to the chap again that's helping me out and told him what I found. And he says, alright, he says, we'll try putting the chips back in and take some measurements with the scope, which I had. So I put all the bits back in, turned this machine on, lo and behold, the same thing, the screen come up and it said that it had the CRT error. And I thought, well, that's at least part of it. So I said to him, well, it could have been a dodgy connection on one of these leads of that not sitting in properly. He said it could have been. But we scoped this out, and going through with the scope, we noticed that there was inconsistencies on the board. And so he said to me, he says, well, have you got schematics? So I sent him through the copy of the schematics. And then he come back to me and he says, from this chip here, from pin 23 and 25, they should go to a 74LS04, which is a NOT gate. And he says, see if you can find the chip. So I found the chip on the board. And he says, well, see what the signal is, because one should be inverse to the other. So I says, okay, put the scope on it, and nothing. Dead as a doornail. There was no signal, no pull up, no pull down at all. So I thought, okay, so maybe we have an issue there. So I said, pop out the IC for the video and check the 74LS04. So I popped this out, metered it from here, still nothing. Dead as a dodo. He says, that could be your problem. It could be a faulty chip. So we metered around it, and we're getting odd errors on it, on one side of it. He says, oh, well, cut it out and do it. So I ended up taking a break for a little bit, went and had tea, and then when I come back, I desoldered it, put a socket in. And I thought, now I know I've got some new ones of these somewhere. I grabbed my packet, and I found my tube of new chips. So I got those, put one in, and got a different result. And I thought, oh, so this is working. So we popped the video chip back in, still weren't getting anywhere. And again, we'd lost the screen this time. And I thought, oh, so I wonder if that was a faulty chip. So I took that one back out, and I got another one out, put another one in, turned it on. We had the same issue as before. And I thought, well, there's something not right. And then all of a sudden, the keyboard and the speaker started going beep, 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 really, really fast. And I thought, well, that's not right. So I turned it off, and I just happened to put my hand over here, and I touched the 74LS04, and it was so hot it almost burnt my finger. It was that hot. So I was sitting there thinking, well, maybe that was a faulty one, not the other one, because the original one wasn't doing anything either. I took that one out, put the original one back in, stone cold, nothing wrong with it. But still, we're not picking up the signals. We're up to that point now, and I'm waiting for these to come in. Now, these two ROMs here, I had another look in my EEPROM programming software, and there was an option that I've forgotten about, which is do not check pins. And so I thought, I wonder if I do that. So I unticked it to do that, and then the ROM chip, bingo, it read it fine. And I thought, okay. But now I could be reading the chip full of errors. So I thought, what do I do now? I pulled the character ROM out. I grabbed the character ROM, same thing, left it unticked to check the pins, because I was getting the same error on that as that. Put it into read, bingo, it read fine. So, okay. And I thought, well, now I've got to find something to compare the ROMs, because I knew this ROM and the one on the 14 are identical. They used the same character set. So I thought, So I had a look online and looked around, and it was WinMerge. I grabbed a copy of that. It's a free program, and it's for merging ROMs and making new ROMs out of old ROMs by adding to them and that. But it will also do a comparison. I got this ROM. I got the character ROM off of this one, and the copy of the character ROM off the 14, which was good. And I did a comparison, and they came up exactly the same. So this chip and this chip must have an issue on their pins, on their address pins somehow. This one, I did a comparison with the 14. The very beginning of them is the same, but then they change because the 16 runs hard drive, so of course it's also going to be altered. There are bits of it that are the same through it, but then there are bits that are not, because it's got other things it does. I've got some of these coming in. I've got some brand new 2732s coming in. So when they get here, I'm going to burn the image onto one, and hopefully it'll read good. And when it reads good, I'll pop it back in here, along with the video chip and the 7404 LS, the good one. And let's see if it reads. It could be these address lines that are causing an issue. Not 100% sure. So what we need to do is otherwise we're going to end up with too much out of this machine to know where the fault could be. Now we're picking that there may be an issue further into this board before it gets here that is causing a problem as well. So that's another issue. But I think now we've diagnosed it down to other issues on this board, and that it's intermittent to when it wants to work and it doesn't want to work. It could be something in these chips, and with these address lines not working properly, that could be also giving us the character error on here. Now I haven't put the 14's character ROM in here to see if that fixes the CRT error, but I am picking that because I'm not getting anything on any of the horizontal and verticals on this chip. This chip has an issue. So that's why I want to wait until we get this in, then we can do this one. In the meantime, for a test for the screen, the screen works, I know that. So I could put the 14 on here, but then I'm not really gaining anything out of that other than the 14 boots up. I know the 14 boots up. It was the floppies I had an issue with on it, that they weren't reading properly, and one of them had a broken stepper strap for moving the heads backwards and forwards. The other one had capacitor rot on the top board. The ROM for here, and I think putting in the other character ROM, we're not going to really know much. So I don't think it's really worthwhile running down that rabbit hole until we can get a good one of these in and this one in. The thing is with this, I know the 14 works. These aren't socketed. The video chips aren't socketed. They're actually soldered to the board, so they're not hard to take out. The other option I was thinking is I take the one out of the 14. I take the one out of here, put a socket in here, and then I could try this chip in here to see if it works. If it doesn't, then I definitely know that chip's dead. But then, on the same token, I don't want to put it in here and kill something in this board and cause me more problems. I could take it from here and put it in here, but then I could have the same issue. I would rather wait until I get the new chips in. If I pop one in here and it goes mad and burns up, then I'm not killed this machine. So yeah, I mean, taking the chip out of here and putting it into here, if I kill it, I just got to wait for the other two to turn up. Hopefully they're not fake. And that was the other thing, is the EEPROM programmers, they can do a check on the TTL based chips like these 7.4 and the 4000 series and that. But on this, there's actually about 6 or 7 chips that are very, very similar. And it just lists up when you do an auto search for it, as it could be one of these. So it doesn't give you a definite ID on it. So whether those chips have been rebranded or not, I don't know. I'm hoping not. The one that got really, really hot could have been, and it could have been a 7404 and not a 74LS04. But anyway, we will get to the bottom of it, hopefully. So anyway, that's where I'm up to. I'm waiting for those for now, and when they get here, we can go a bit further with it. I'm leaving it at this point unless something else pops up, then I'll add some more onto this video. Alright guys. Hey guys, so what I decided to do is, while we're waiting for that other stuff to come in, take out the hardened floppy drive unit from the Bondwell-16. Check the floppy and the hard drive, see if there's any stiction in the hard drive and it's not spinning, to release the heads, and also check the floppy for any capacitor rot on the boards and so forth. Just to give them a clean, give them a lube up. They've been sitting for a while, they might be dry, so I think that's a good thing to do. These are a bit of a mission to take out of the case, the way they're put in there, and it's not easy. My first original videos I did on this, I had some information on it. If you need more information on that, give me a yell in the descriptions below, or send me a message or something, go on Facebook or through the YouTube webpage, and I can take you through doing that, or I can contact you and give you the pictures or information on how to do it. So I thought, well, to make this a little bit longer, I can do that and pad it out with doing this stuff. Alright, so the unit's out. It's generally screwed in by 2 screws across here, and sorry, we're upside down. There's one in here. It's a washer that fell off it, and on the inside there are 2 clips that actually slide down into some slots inside. The way that this all screws in, this is sitting under plastic, so you need to undo all the front pieces and these screws in the side and that, and the weight of it will cause it to drop and down on an angle, and when it does that, it comes away from the plastic, because you've got to slide it up to get these clips out, and that's the problem with it, and it can take a bit of mucking around to get it out, but they do come out. A lot of swearing, but they do come out. So anyway, this is out now, so there's just 4 screws, 2 on either side. To remember with these, if it is the 16 with the hard and the floppy drive, there's 2 different sets of screws. The hard drive generally tends to be coarser screws, and the floppy drive are the finer pitch screws. So just remember that. Other than that, I think one is fractionally longer than the other, but not by much. But these are a sleeved screw, so I'll take one out to show you. And then what that means is they have that shaft on them. And that's just where it goes through the rubber and everything. And they have these rubber grommets in here for the vibration. So it was an early form of mitigating the vibration out of the drives from the machines themselves. Or from the machines putting vibrations into the drives. So that's that. So yes, the floppy drives are a finer thread. And then this is the hard drive here. I'll do it side to side. And that's the hard drive one there. And it is a slightly coarser thread. And it's a slightly shorter thread too. So with these drives, it takes the information from that floppy drive on the 16. Because this cable comes up the side to the board on the top. Now on that board, the floppy drives also come off that board as well. So that board handles both these drives. But then when I take this out, you'll see that on the... I'll just take these washers off so I don't lose them, as I normally do. When we take this out, you will see the hard drives actually have a secondary board on them. And that does all the information they need to decode the drive and send and read data and so forth. They do have a normal hard drive in them, but this is just the added board they use for decoding the information and sending and receiving it. And of course, when you take these out, they've got to go out through the front of the drive. They don't go out through the back because the plastic shrouds on the front are wider than this metal casing. And this was all part. This metal was all part of the EMF thing, trying to cut down on interference and things like that. And that was from the monitor, because the monitor sat right next to it in the case as well, remember? And that was all to get around all those problems and trying to get away from that information. So we'll sit that down now. They're all nice and loose. We can probably pop the cable off that one. And then this should just slide out with a bit of hope. Yes, it does. And that's the floppy drive. And the hard drive, it should be the same. It might come out the bottom actually. And there we go. And that one's out. And so that is just the case that holds it all in. There's nothing over the top. I did on my 14, when, if you look at that, the 12 doesn't have this. The 12 is bolted in. And to get this cage out of the 12, you have to physically unbolt this, and you've got to take the tube out of the machine, the front of it, to get to the screws, the two screws that screw into the side of that. It's nuts. So I actually adapted it to the same as the 14, and I made some brackets that went on the sides here, that when the drive screwed in, they went down and slid through the holes to clip it in. So I did that, and it makes it a lot easier. Sorry, just getting that out of the way. So anyway, so this is a Seagate ST212, which is a 10 meg drive, so it must be the original it came with. And as I said, if we turn it, that's your original power supply for the Seagate drive. And then if we actually flip it over, this is the MFM controller board that it runs. It's alright, they blanked that off. I was just making sure that that wasn't open, that window. But these are made to run more than one drive. So that's why they have the dual data heads. And these little ones are the data heads. So for each of the drives. I'm pretty sure they're the data heads. But anyway, that... Yes, because one's control and one's data. I'm not 100% sure now. But they are standard from normal MFM controllers. They ran the 2 ribbon cables. And to go to the second drive, you ran a third one from here, but this one was daisy chained. And on the drive, you set it for whether it was drive 1 or drive 2. So, yeah. So that's what that is anyway. And as you see, you can look underneath here, and they had a power connector here as well. Another power connector on the side there. But they're all interconnected, and it must have been for... They may have made these for multiple different machines. What it was is that was just where the power connectors were on them, so they can connect to different places. So anyway, that's what that is. So I will pop this off later, and we'll just check to make sure that the stepper motor is working properly on this, and that it is spinning up properly. I do hear it spinning up, it's just not seeking and checking the heads in it. So whether there's an issue with the stepper motor, or it could be just it's not being initialized by the machine when it starts up. The floppy drive's good. It's got that's the resistor pack to tell it it's the last drive in the chain, or the only drive in the chain as it may be. And these very, very old Shugart style drives in these systems had to have the pull-up resistor rack in the last drive. And if it was a dual drive system, it was in the second drive it was the B drive. So generally you'd have A and then B. When you do these, they're generally, this is A and this is C. Sometimes you'll find in some systems, when they boot up, the hard drive becomes A, and then the floppy drives become C and B. So just something to keep a wee bit of an eye on there, depending on your system. And this one might be one of the ones that's not too bad. Slightly different board again on the top, but I think this might be one of the better boards, because on the earlier ones, I've got some up on the shelf up there, they had issues around here with some of these capacitors leaking around the back and that, and I have a whole pile of them, kits for doing them. And on odd ones, it was sometimes in these boards as well they went, and you had to take these off and take the board out, and yeah, they became a pain to do, because you ended up having to take the plugs for the power for the motors, and that wasn't a plug you could undo, you had to desolder it. But anyway, now those are out, we'll have a look at these and see if we can see what's going on, and if anything needs doing. And as I say, if anything, it'd be give it a clean, check to make sure everything's moving relatively easy and nice. Make sure that the strap's not broken on here like that I had on one of the others, and make sure that the heads can move up and down with it. And if that's the case, I mean, this looks really, really clean and tidy. So it may be that it's just been sitting for so long, it's gotten a bit sticky, maybe. But we'll have a look at it and see how we go. That's a little more involved to play with, so we'll put that to one side, and we'll have a look at this floppy drive first. And we'll just take we'll disengage the heads and take the protective sleeve out. And that's a lot of the early ones, they used to have these cardboard sleeves you put in, because then when you put it in, you close the lever, it puts the heads on the cardboard so they can't bounce around and damage anything. Later model ones had a mechanism in them that when you ejected it, the heads were safe and they weren't able to bounce around and cause a problem. But no, this seems to look okay. It looks really, really clean and tidy. But I'll have to put my eyes on, and we'll have a look at this and see what we can see. Right, so when you're looking at these drives, sorry if my head was getting in the way there, guys, but when you look at these drives, you look around the caps, especially the electrolytics, and you'll know if you've got the problem, because you'll see the copper tracks. You'll see your copper tracks. They actually look quite bright when they're normal. When you get the capacitor rot, which is when the fluid leaks out of the bottom of these, most of the time on the floppies, it'll start eating away at this etched board, and you'll actually see it'll start having dark splotches in it, and around the capacitors you'll notice that. I just sort of noticed there's like some stuff around here, but I think that's just flux. I will give that a bit of a clean, and just to make sure. But there's just a couple of the components were bent over. That one was bent over, but I don't think it was shorting. But yeah, it just pays to have a look at everything, just to make sure that there's nothing shorting or brushing on anything else. that could cause you an issue. But this looks really, really nice. It's really clean. So I'm wondering if maybe it's just a bit of gunk on the... Oh yeah, if I look down inside here, if I look down inside there, and I look at the bottom head, there's a lot of garbage on the bottom of it, on the outside. So I'm just wondering if maybe we need to give that a little bit of a clean. And because I can't look at the other side very well, I'm just wondering if it's that on the other side too. So I'll get a bit of isopropyl and a cotton bud, and we'll give that a little bit of a clean up and see if that comes off. There's like a browny stain on there. Looks a little bit like the brownie stuff on this top circuit board, but usually that stuff's either come off of the cardboard sleeves when they've gone in, or off a disc. That's the other way you can get the stuff on here, is that the stuff can come off the discs. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's that gunk on the end of the... I'll just bring it around again. No, you're not going to see it now. But there is a browny gunk. You might have seen it there for a minute or two. But that could have been why this wasn't reading a floppy disk. There could have been just gunk on the... Gunks come up. Yeah, the cotton bud's starting to come up quite brown. Yeah, I can see it. It's quite dirty. I don't know if you'd be able to see it. So... because the other way you do these properly is with a cleaning disc, but I don't have one at the moment. Now I think there is a guy online who showed you a way of making the cleaning discs, and I mean that could be another way of doing it, and that was just using an old floppy disk. Yeah, the heads seem to be moving okay. They sort of go forwards and backwards all right. And I'll just get screws, just see what that grease is like. Yeah, that's quite dry looking, that stuff. Yeah, so it's like it's gone like a dry glue, the grease that's on it. So that could be part of our problem too, is that the rails could be quite dry, and what's happening is they're binding, because then they're not stepping properly. It does feel alright going backwards and forwards. But I think I might get another cotton bud and put some silicone spray in a lid and just wipe it on those rails to see if that makes it a lot nicer. And that's one thing you want to get yourself, guys. Get yourself some silicone spray, multi-purpose silicone spray, and if you can, get a little tube of silicone grease, because that would be better for here, but I don't have any. So I use the spray. The only thing you got to be careful, you don't get it everywhere. So you just got to make sure that you got to be quite gentle with it and you don't get it all over the place. So I hold it away from it, and I give it a few squirts in the can and the lid, and you'll see it actually gets in the liquid goes into the lid. And then I just get it on the end of a cotton bud. Don't get it over anything else but what needs to be on, because you get this on other things and it'll cause you issues. So I do it and then pull the heads forward and slide them back again, and put a little bit on that strap as well, because that strap rides over itself and it won't hurt it to have some on there and give it a bit of a clean. It's starting to feel a lot better now. Feels a lot better than what it was. And as I say, the rest of this looks really, really tidy. I don't think there's much else wrong with it. So it may have been just the It might have been a bit gunked up, and that looks like nice and clean in there now. Yep, that looks okay. So put the cardboard in and reclose the lever down on it. On these old drives, it just stops them bouncing around and causing an issue. But they can go in there so they can get reused. Go on that. Now we may need that silicon spray for the hard drive too, for around where the bushes are for the motor and that. So I think, other than being able to chuck that on and spin it up, now I can't check the speed on this because I don't have anything for testing it, but I do have a Grease Weasel version 4.1 coming, and hopefully that'll be here in another week or so, about the same time as the chips turn up. When it does, we'll stick this on it, because you can use them by USB into a PC, and you can do RPM tests, and what we can do is check the speed of this thing to make sure it's rotating. If it's not rotating right, that's what this little potentiometer is down the bottom here that I'm pointing to with the screwdriver, and that adjusts the speed on this so we can get it to the right speed. So close that again. So yeah, I think this one we need to wait until we can try it out, and I'll put the hard drive up now and we'll have a look at the hard drive. Right, so on the hard drive I will pop the leads off it, and we will undo the screws and take this board off. And this is the Western Digital controller board. So this is the Western Digital controller board for these. It's the model number on this one is a WD1002 SHD. Assembly number on here, etc. I don't know if there's a date on it as such. No, it doesn't look like it. But this is the controller board for the hard drive anyway. This does all the encoding and that it needs to store the data on the board. Now I don't know if it's with those wires connected. Yeah, I thought so. That's the problem with these, is the way they solder these wires on. The board's got to stay attached to the drive. But as you can see underneath here, so they have the plus and the minus 5 volts going from one to the other. Why they couldn't have made a connector to go from there to there, because I've got another one here. You know, why you don't go from a jumper male to go from here to here, like they used to have on the fans on the old PCs, on the IBM PCs. They had the double-headed fan connectors, one from there to there, and then you could just have your power going into that one. I don't know why they do this sometimes. I really don't. To me, it's just not logical, but to somebody else's way of thinking, it is. Anyway, so that's that. To make sure all the plugs are on properly and they haven't decided to make a move and go somewhere else. Push them all on nice and tight. Jumpers are all on there. I'm not sure what the settings are for that, but we can probably find out if we got the manual for this drive. That's the switch for the head. Okay, so that's for homing the head. Okay. Alright, so that seems, there doesn't really seem to be much on that can be an issue, other than it's alright. That's just the EEPROM for it, and that's an AM2716. It's only a little ROM chip. That will be I think it's some sort of resistor rack for termination, probably. Yeah, everything else looks okay, the capacitors and everything else. resistors and that, they look all okay. It doesn't look like there's anything. Doesn't look like there's anything on the hard drive itself that's got an issue. So, and those connections look alright. So what I'll do is I won't bother trying to test those connections there, because there could be a problem with them on the sockets, not on the pins. So if that goes back on, what I can do is I can test from socket to socket to see if the power connectors are okay, because this one's hidden on the side of the drive when it goes back in. You don't actually see that one. And that's what I'm saying, it looks like it's been made for multiple machines. It does look like someone's had a play with this before. Now whether that was at the factory or not, I don't know. But looking at this ROM chip, this one here, it's had stuff soldered to some of these legs. And I don't think that would have been from factory. You can see the solder on them. So whether somebody's had a look, that's the Western Digital controller, I think. It does, yeah. WDC 83, 1983. And that's the WO1010BL-05. And that's a control chip. So what someone was doing with that, they may have, they didn't, yeah. If they weren't careful, they could have caused an issue there. And that's another Western Digital chip, but that looks okay. Don't know what that one was. Seven four PL16R6. What is that? Okay. That's been put in a socket for some reason. Along with this one, which is just AB314E221331. Don't know what that is either. I just wonder if that goes with that. That might be something like a PLA or something, or GLA. They're all standard 7.4s. Yeah, I wonder if that's a replacement for some reason that they've had replaced. That might have been why this has been soldered. They may have found an issue with something and they've done that. I wonder if this is a buffer jumper, because one side's got 256 and the other side's got 512. Whether that's buffer or whether that's bytes, the block sizes that it goes across. Test point. A couple of spare IC sockets and a capacitor socket. A lot of these older boards generally had spare areas for ICs for doing mods and upgrades and stuff like that. And that was what they did at the factory, because they were sort of looking at future-proofing it as they went along. There's another one up front there, another spare one up there. That's a set of jumpers for, not sure what, whether it's something to do with this maybe. It goes from 0 to 7, so 8 bits. It looks alright. It looks tidy enough. It doesn't look like there's anything jumping out to say there's a problem. I think the only thing to do, so we can get that machine running, would be to try the hard drive and see if the hard drive's going to work. Now, the other, I don't know if my bench power supply will handle it. I was going to say the other thing to do is probably drop some power into the hard drive from the bench power supply, but I'm just wondering if that's going to draw a bit too much current for it and cause it to cut out. I don't quite know, because some of these old drives do pull a bit of power. The other thing I can do, drop that one. The other thing I can do is hunt out an old AT power supply out of an old Pentium 1 or something, or a 486 or a 386 case that has just a normal push button on off. It's not a soft start like the more modern machines are, and because they'll have the the power connector on them, and I can just plug it in, turn it on, and get it to spin up. Because we should hear it spin up and then do a seek. Because generally that's what they do. They do that. They unlock and then they go and they do a seek on the drive and make sure the heads are in the right place. So that might be something worth looking at. There's not a lot more we can do with that, because some of these drives were quite open and you could get into things. I mean, we could possibly put a little bit down into there, down into that shaft where it goes in the side. But as I said, they're very, very tidy looking drives. It's like it's had very minimal use. So I might do that. I might see if I can find a power connector and we'll try this drive on the bench. I'll be back shortly. Okay guys, so I've got an old AT power pack here. These have been tested and working. So I got it here, it's got the switch here. Got it plugged in. Got it plugged into the benchtop isolated power supply. So I'm going to switch her on and see what happens. So it seems to be booting, or sorry, it seems to be spinning up, but there's no data coming into it, so I can't see it wanting to do anything. So yes, there's nothing to tell it to unpark the heads, or there's nothing there to tell it to do that. So there's nothing there to tell it to. Usually when this is it, you'll hear them go click, and then they go and that's when they're setting themselves up. And you'll hear all that sort of noise. Hopefully we'll hear it when we can get this sorted with the 16. But yeah, it sounds to be running fine. It doesn't seem to sound like it's got any issues. I think our problem with the hard drive is that it's not initializing it, so I can't talk to it, because we've got this error with the CRT and that type of thing going on. That's why the floppy would be different, because it was actually starting to talk to the floppy. It just wasn't loading anything. Well, that's partly the same problem. It can't actually initialize to actually know what to do with it. But I think, yeah, we can do something with that. I think this is spinning up fine, so the floppy drive looks like it's all good. Alright guys, so I think, yeah, we might call this one the end of it, and wait for these parts to come in. Well, hopefully they're going to be here in the next week or two, and we can get this thing to somewhere better than what it is now, and a lot further along. I hope so. Doing that, then once we've finished this one off and this is working, I'll bring the 14 back in and we'll finish that one off, put that in its case, and then I can show you the family. I have the 12, the 14 and now the 16. So you can see them all there and what they look like. I have got pictures of them which I have put up before. And as I always say, guys, have a great day. Have a great week. Until next time. Ciao.